The sky darkened as massive shadows moved across the clouds. People in the cities looked up, frozen in fear. A loud, thunderous roar echoed through the streets, shaking windows and sending birds scattering. From the clouds above, the Dragon Empress appeared, her wings spanning wider than any building below. Her scales shimmered like molten metal, and her eyes glowed with an ancient, fierce light. Soldiers scrambled to organize, but their weapons looked tiny and weak compared to her. Sirens blared and people ran, trying to find safety, but the Empress's presence alone was enough to stop their hearts. She circled the largest city first, her massive claws leaving deep marks on the roads and buildings. Smoke rose from where her tail swept the ground, knocking cars and trees aside like they were toys. From her perch above the city, she roared again, a sound so powerful it made the air vibrate. People on the streets could not move. They could only watch as this living mountain of power surveyed them. Even the bravest soldiers felt their courage shaking, realizing that they were facing a creature older than any human history. The Empress's voice echoed in the minds of humans, speaking in words they could understand. "I am the Dragon Empress. Bow or face the end." Her words were calm but filled with a dangerous promise. People trembled, and many fell to their knees. Some soldiers tried to aim their weapons, but their bullets looked like sparks to her scales. Helicopters flew close, trying to get a better view, but the Empress swatted them aside with a flick of her tail. She was unstoppable, and humanity seemed fragile before her. Amid the chaos, a human veteran moved quietly through the streets. He was not young, but his steps were steady. Unlike others who panicked, he seemed calm, watching the Empress closely. He carried no special weapon, only his experience and a clear mind. He knew that fighting her directly was impossible, but he also knew that understanding her might be their only chance. As the Empress landed in the city square, she looked down at the people in front of her. Her massive form blocked the sun, and her wings moved slightly, stirring the air and making papers and dust fly everywhere. The veteran stepped forward, alone. Everyone around him gasped and shouted for him to stop, but he did not. He met the Empress's eyes without fear. She lowered her head, tilting it as if curious about this human who dared to approach. "Who are you to face me?" her voice rumbled. The veteran answered steadily, "I am a human veteran. I have seen war and survived. I am here to speak." The Empress's eyes narrowed, her nostrils flaring as smoke rose from her mouth. No human had ever dared speak to her like this. The city held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Lightning flashed across the sky, reflecting off the Empress's scales. She roared again, louder than before, shaking buildings and rattling windows. The veteran remained still, understanding that he was standing on the edge of a disaster. Around him, soldiers tried to form a line, but they were too small, too weak. The Empress's tail swept near a building, and the concrete cracked under its weight. People screamed and fled, but the veteran stayed, unshaken. He felt a strange connection to the Empress, something beyond fear and anger. He sensed that she was ancient and proud, but also curious, and maybe that curiosity could be their key. The Empress finally spoke again, her voice both angry and commanding. "You humans are weak. Why do you not run? Why do you not hide?" The veteran's answer was quiet but firm. "Because we will not give up. We will find a way. We survive even against impossible odds." The Empress tilted her head, intrigued. She had never seen such determination in creatures so small, so fragile. Around her, her followers, other dragons, circled in the sky, ready to strike. They were enormous and terrifying, but even they hesitated, sensing that something was different about these humans. The veteran's words seemed to echo in the minds of the dragons. He was just one man, but his courage shone like a beacon. The Empress roared one last time before lifting into the air again, wings spreading wide as she prepared to leave the city. Smoke rose from her landing spot, and dust filled the air. Soldiers and civilians looked at the destruction and felt despair, but a spark of hope remained in their hearts because of the veteran. He had faced the Dragon Empress and lived. He had shown that humans were not completely helpless, even in the face of the most powerful creature they had ever seen. As the Empress flew back into the clouds, her massive shadow disappearing from the streets below, the veteran watched carefully. He knew this was only the beginning. The dragons had arrived, and the world would never be the same. But humanity, though weak now, had not yet revealed its full strength. And the veteran, standing alone among the ruins, understood that the battle was just beginning, and that humans still had a chance to survive against the ancient, proud dragons. The morning after the Dragon Empress arrived, the city was still trembling. Buildings were damaged, smoke filled the streets, and the air smelled of fire. Soldiers tried to regroup, but morale was low. Many humans looked defeated, believing the dragons were unstoppable. The Empress's followers, smaller dragons but still massive and terrifying, hovered above, observing with sharp, curious eyes. Their claws left marks in the streets, and their roars reminded everyone that humanity was not safe. The human leaders called an emergency meeting. They debated whether to surrender or fight. Most military officers suggested avoiding confrontation, believing the dragons were too powerful. Yet the veteran who had faced the Empress spoke firmly. "We are not as weak as they think. We have minds, strategy, and courage. We can fight in ways they do not expect." His words inspired some, but fear still hung heavily in the air. The Empress, flying above the city, watched humans carefully. She was impressed by the veteran but still saw the rest of humanity as weak. She sent a small squad of dragons down to test the city's defenses. They landed with thunderous crashes, breathing fire and crushing vehicles under their weight. Soldiers fired their weapons, but bullets barely scratched the dragon's scales. The humans' attacks seemed insignificant, yet something small began to show. The humans did not panic entirely. They moved carefully, retreating to hidden bunkers and using the ruined city to their advantage. The dragons noticed their cautious movements and laughed. They believed humans were too weak and slow to be a real threat. The veteran, however, quietly directed teams of soldiers to set traps, hide in shadows, and watch the dragons closely. Humans seemed fragile, but their minds were active, preparing for something bigger. The first clash began when the dragons attacked a military checkpoint. Explosions rang out, and fire illuminated the dark streets. The dragons easily destroyed tanks and armored vehicles, yet the veteran had planned an ambush. Humans triggered hidden barriers, collapsing parts of a building onto one dragon. It roared in anger and pain, a sound that made even the other dragons pause. For the first time, the Empress realized that humans were not entirely predictable. She tilted her massive head, watching through the smoke and flames. How could such weak creatures coordinate such an attack? Her curiosity grew alongside her anger. The dragons around her were confused, unsure how to respond to the human strategy. The veteran moved calmly, unseen behind a ruined wall, knowing that this small victory was only the beginning. The Empress called out in her thunderous voice, addressing humanity directly. "You are weak. Why do you resist? Surrender and I will spare your lives." The veteran stepped forward, standing tall despite the chaos. "We will not give up. We will find ways to survive, even against you." The Empress's eyes narrowed. She had never seen such defiance, and it intrigued her. The clash ended with the dragons retreating to the sky, smoke rising from the damaged city. Humans celebrated their minor success, knowing it was not a true victory but a glimpse of hope. The veteran looked at the Empress in the clouds and felt a strange connection, sensing that she was watching him closely. Around him, humans prepared for the next attack, learning quickly from their mistakes. The dragons may have underestimated them, but humanity's cleverness had begun to show. As night fell, the Empress roared one last time before circling high above the city. Her voice carried a mix of anger and curiosity. The veteran stood among the rubble, knowing that the dragon's misjudgment of human intelligence could be the first step toward turning the tide. The city held its breath, and a spark of hope ignited in hearts that had almost given up. Humanity seemed weak, but in their minds and hearts, a quiet, growing strength was already taking shape. The day after the first clash, humans began to show they were more than they seemed. The veteran had spent the night planning with his team, analyzing dragon movements and learning their patterns. While dragons believed humans were weak and slow, the people prepared clever traps, hidden weapons, and coordinated attacks that the dragons could not anticipate. Smoke and debris covered the streets as humans used the ruined city to their advantage, moving silently and striking quickly. The dragons attacked again, descending from the sky in a show of power. Fire erupted and buildings shook as claws and wings tore through the city. Soldiers fired back, this time using new technology the dragons had not expected. Energy barriers and remote-controlled explosives allowed humans to strike from safe positions. One dragon, confident in its strength, charged directly into the streets, only to be caught in a trap that pinned it temporarily. The other dragons watched in disbelief, realizing humans could plan with intelligence that rivaled their own. The veteran led a small squad through hidden tunnels, emerging behind a dragon squadron. Using noise and light to confuse them, the humans struck from multiple angles, showing coordination the dragons had never seen. The dragons had thought humans were fragile and predictable, but every move revealed something new. Even the Empress, circling above, felt surprise. She had faced countless species, but none had adapted so quickly under pressure. Civilians joined subtly, helping to guide the soldiers and set minor obstacles for the dragons. The veteran coordinated signals, movements, and diversions that made the dragons struggle to respond. One dragon tried to charge a building, only to be temporarily trapped by reinforced debris that humans had set up in advance. The dragons' roars of frustration filled the air. Humanity seemed fragile, yet their ingenuity was terrifying. The Empress landed briefly to observe the scene more closely. Flames licked the edges of the streets, and smoke twisted around her massive form. Her eyes narrowed as she saw humans moving strategically, using their environment like a weapon. She called out to her dragons, ordering them to adapt, but even they seemed confused by the humans' unexpected tactics. The veteran and his squad struck again, moving silently and quickly. They avoided direct confrontation and instead focused on controlling the battlefield. Each small success boosted human morale. The city, though damaged, became a proving ground for human strategy and courage. Soldiers and civilians alike realized they had more power in their minds than in their weapons. The Empress tilted her head, her curiosity growing. She roared, but it was not pure rage. It was a mixture of anger and intrigue. These humans were unlike any creature she had met. The veteran watched her from a ruined building, feeling a cautious confidence. Humans had shown their first real strength. They were weak in size and firepower, yes, but their minds and strategy made them a danger the dragons had never calculated. As the sun set, the dragons retreated again, circling above to reconsider their approach. The veteran gathered his team and civilians, knowing this was only the beginning. Humanity had revealed a hidden side, a cleverness that could match even the oldest and proudest dragons. In the quiet, the veteran glanced at the sky, sensing the Empress's eyes on him. The dragons underestimated them, but humans were learning fast, and the battle was far from over. The dragons circled above the city, uneasy. They had never faced creatures that adapted so quickly. The Empress's eyes burned with a mix of anger and confusion as she watched humans move with precision. Each attack they launched was different from the last, showing creativity and intelligence the dragons had not expected. Soldiers, civilians, and the veteran coordinated silently, turning ruins and debris into weapons and traps. The dragons were powerful, but they were no longer confident. Uncertainty began to creep into their minds. A dragon dove into the city, expecting an easy strike, but the streets seemed alive with human strategy. Explosives hidden behind walls erupted, and humans struck from rooftops and shadows. The dragon recoiled in surprise, its roar echoing through the city. Other dragons exchanged confused glances, unsure of what to do. Even the Empress, with centuries of experience, paused to analyze the humans. She realized that strength alone would not win this battle. The veteran led a team through the city's narrow passages, laying traps and guiding civilians to safety. They struck quickly and retreated, leaving the dragons frustrated and disoriented. One dragon charged recklessly, only to fall into a cleverly disguised pit. The others hesitated, afraid to make the same mistake. Fear was foreign to these ancient beings, but now it touched them, sharp and unexpected. The Empress's pride struggled against the new reality that humans were unpredictable and capable. In the skies above, smaller dragons whispered among themselves, sensing the growing unease. They had never seen the humans respond with such cunning. Some dragons began to doubt the Empress's judgment, questioning whether she underestimated these fragile creatures. The Empress roared to regain control, but even her voice carried tension now. The humans' boldness had unsettled them. The veteran and his team struck again, targeting weak points the dragons did not even realize they had. Energy weapons and hidden explosives created confusion and disorder among the flying predators. Each small victory made humans bolder and dragons more cautious. The streets of the city, though damaged, became a labyrinth of opportunity for humans and a trap for dragons. The veteran understood that fear could be used strategically, both to protect his people and weaken the dragons. The Empress landed briefly on a tall ruined tower, surveying the chaos below. Her massive wings stirred the air, and her eyes glowed with ancient wisdom, but she felt something new: fear. She had never underestimated an opponent, and it was a bitter taste. Her followers sensed her doubt, and even the bravest dragons hesitated in midair. Humanity's cleverness had shifted the balance, and for the first time, dragons questioned their dominance. As night fell, the city was quiet, but the tension remained. Humans had shown that they could fight with strategy, intelligence, and courage, even against overwhelming power. The Empress rose into the sky, her massive form silhouetted against the moon. She roared, but it was a roar of frustration and contemplation, not just dominance. The veteran looked up, knowing that this was the moment humans had begun to earn the respect of ancient dragons. The battle was far from over, but a new chapter had begun, and fear had entered the hearts of creatures that had never known it before. The city had become a battlefield. Fires burned, smoke filled the air, and buildings crumbled under the clash between dragons and humans. The veteran organized squads to protect civilians while also striking at the dragons with precise attacks. Humans now fought with a confidence that surprised even themselves. They had learned from each encounter, setting traps, using terrain, and coordinating attacks that kept dragons on edge. The dragons were furious. They had come expecting an easy conquest but found themselves facing creatures who were clever, adaptive, and relentless. The Empress roared above, calling her dragons to concentrate their attacks. Fire rained from the sky, buildings shattered, and debris flew in all directions. Tanks and fighter jets were destroyed, yet humans struck back with ingenuity, using hidden weapons and ambushes to slow the dragons' advance. Humanity's weakness was only apparent. Their strategy made them unpredictable and dangerous. The veteran led a squad deep into the ruins to target a key dragon command post. They moved quickly, setting explosives and sending signals to distract the dragons. One of the smaller dragons fell into a trap, while another narrowly escaped. Civilians helped move supplies, guiding soldiers through secret paths. Every small victory boosted morale and angered the dragons, who could not comprehend how humans continued to fight despite their losses. The Empress landed in the middle of a wide avenue, spreading her massive wings and unleashing a roar that shook the city. She struck down a column of soldiers, crushing vehicles and scattering debris. Yet humans continued to fight, retreating strategically, luring dragons into traps, and striking when the opportunity came. The clash was violent, intense, and cinematic, with fire and smoke painting the city in chaos. Humans were weak physically, but their minds made them a threat the dragons had not anticipated. In the sky, dragons circled, trying to regain control. They were powerful, but their confusion grew as humans demonstrated coordination and unpredictability. The veteran watched from the shadows, guiding squads and civilians. He understood the dragons' patterns and exploited them with clever tactics. Every movement forced dragons to hesitate, creating small but meaningful openings for humanity. The battle escalated further as both sides suffered heavy losses. The city became a war-torn maze, a testing ground for human ingenuity. The Empress realized that this war would not be simple. Humans were not merely survivors. They were fighters who learned, adapted, and struck with intelligence. Her ancient pride was challenged, and even her most loyal dragons felt the tension of uncertainty. As night fell, the veteran regrouped his team, surveying the destruction and the scattered dragons above. Smoke swirled around them, but humans still stood, battered yet unbroken. The dragons retreated temporarily, circling the city and observing, calculating. Humanity had proven that their strength was not in size or firepower, but in cleverness, courage, and unity. The veteran looked to the sky, sensing that the next encounter would be even more dangerous, but also knowing that humanity had begun to fight on equal footing with the ancient and proud dragons. The city was quiet in the early morning, but the tension was electric. Humans had suffered losses, but they were learning faster than the dragons could predict. The veteran reviewed the plans with his squad, revealing humanity's hidden potential. Special weapons, advanced AI coordination, and rapid deployment units were ready to change the course of the war. Dragons had underestimated humans, but now they were about to see their full capability. The Empress circled above, her eyes narrowing. She had watched humans adapt and survive, but she believed she had seen the extent of their power. As dragons swooped down to attack, humans unveiled new weapons that glowed with intense energy. Precision strikes targeted weak points in the dragon's armor. Explosives, traps, and high-tech projectiles hit simultaneously from multiple angles, confusing and injuring dragons that had thought themselves invincible. The veteran led a squad into the heart of the battle, coordinating their attacks using signals and preset strategies. Small units appeared out of nowhere, ambushing dragons from behind cover, striking quickly and vanishing. Civilians assisted by guiding soldiers and supplying equipment. The dragons roared in frustration as their attacks failed to land. What they thought was weakness was actually strategy, patience, and intelligence. Humanity had revealed its true potential. The Empress felt a new emotion, concern. She had underestimated humans completely, and now she was forced to respect their intelligence and determination. The dragons tried to regroup, but humans anticipated their moves and countered immediately. Fire and explosions lit the skies as humans turned the ruined city into a battlefield they controlled. The veteran watched calmly, knowing that they were finally beginning to match the dragon's strength with strategy and cunning. One massive dragon attempted to crush a human squad, only to fall into a trap that used both explosives and the environment cleverly. Other dragons tried to intervene but found themselves surrounded and struck from multiple directions. The Empress's followers were confused, afraid, and impressed all at once. Humans had become a force the dragons could not ignore. The veteran and his team pressed forward, guiding small squads to hit the dragons at key points. Each success demoralized the dragons further. The Empress roared, circling high above, realizing that the battle had shifted. Humans were not weak. They were dangerous, intelligent, and capable of learning faster than dragons could anticipate. As the sun set, the dragons pulled back slightly, circling above in caution. Humanity had revealed its true power, a combination of strategy, intelligence, and courage. The veteran looked up at the Empress, feeling that the tide of the war had finally begun to turn. The dragons, ancient and proud, were shocked, and for the first time, feared the creatures they had once considered insignificant. The city, though battered, was a symbol of humanity's rise, a hint of what they could achieve if they continued to fight. The city was quiet for the first time in days, but the calm was deceptive. Humans were recovering and reorganizing, knowing the dragons would return stronger and angrier. The veteran moved among his squads, planning the final confrontation. They had learned the dragons' patterns, weaknesses, and tactics. Civilians helped set traps and provide supplies. The city itself became a fortress of strategy, every street and ruin part of a larger plan. The Empress hovered high above, her massive wings beating slowly as she observed the humans. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the veteran coordinating squads, civilians, and technology with precision. For the first time, she felt a strange mix of respect and frustration. Her ancient pride made her reluctant to admit it, but humans had grown into a formidable enemy. Some dragons whispered doubts among themselves, questioning whether the Empress had underestimated humanity too much. The veteran gathered key soldiers and explained the strategy for the final battle. Humans would not confront the dragons head-on. Instead, they would lure them into the ruins, use hidden traps, and strike with precision from multiple angles. Every move was designed to exploit the dragon's arrogance and overconfidence. The veteran's daughter would play a crucial role, guiding certain units and communicating with him in real time. She was young, intelligent, and brave, a symbol of hope for humanity. The dragons began to descend, sensing that humans were preparing for something big. Fire and smoke filled the sky as the first wave approached. The Empress roared, demanding submission, but her voice carried hesitation. She remembered the veteran and his daughter, knowing that their presence complicated matters. The veteran signaled his teams to take positions, and humans moved quietly but confidently into place. The city became a tense battlefield, silent before the storm. The veteran glanced at the sky, seeing dragons circling, preparing to strike. He thought of the daughter and civilians relying on him, and his resolve strengthened. This was the moment to prove that humanity was not weak, that they could stand against the oldest and proudest beings in existence. The Empress watched closely, torn between rage, pride, and curiosity. As the dragons swooped lower, humans triggered the first traps. Debris fell from hidden buildings, explosives exploded, and humans struck from unexpected angles. The Empress's massive wings stirred the air violently, but even she felt the pressure. The veteran moved among his squad, directing attacks, guiding civilians, and setting more traps. The daughter relayed information, her voice steady and confident. The setup for the final confrontation was complete. Humans had learned, adapted, and prepared for every possibility. The Empress hovered, realizing that the next clash would not be simple. Pride and anger battled curiosity and respect in her heart. The veteran looked at the dragons above and knew this would be humanity's defining moment. The city waited, tense and silent, as both sides braced for the epic battle to come. The sun rose over the ruined city, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Humans were in position, hidden behind debris on rooftops and in tunnels. The veteran and his daughter stood together, their eyes fixed on the approaching dragons. The Empress circled above, wings spread wide, her eyes burning with a mixture of anger, curiosity, and reluctant respect. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final clash. Dragons swooped down, fire and smoke streaking the air. Humans unleashed their carefully coordinated attacks, striking from multiple angles with precision. Explosions rocked the streets, debris fell from buildings, and dragons were forced to dodge and retreat. Each trap, each strike, showed the dragons that humans were not weak. They were strategic, clever, and terrifying in their adaptability. The veteran directed his squads flawlessly, moving through chaos with calm determination. The Empress landed in the center of the battlefield, massive wings stirring the air violently. She roared, calling her dragons to fight with all their strength. Humans responded with courage and intelligence, turning the ruins into a lethal maze. One by one, dragons fell into traps or were forced to retreat. Even the smallest human squad struck decisively, proving that size and firepower were not the only measures of strength. The Empress's roars were powerful, but now mixed with caution. The veteran and his daughter worked together, guiding units and civilians. They had become symbols of human resilience, showing that intelligence, strategy, and courage could match even ancient power. The Empress observed, her respect growing despite her pride. Humans had survived, adapted, and fought back with everything they had. They were weak physically, yes, but strong in ways dragons could not initially understand. Finally, the Empress lifted into the sky, her massive form silhouetted against the setting sun. She roared one last time, Not in rage, but in awe. The dragons retreated, circling above, shocked by humanity's resilience. Humans cheered quietly, though their bodies were exhausted, their clothes torn and scorched. The veteran embraced his daughter, relief and pride washing over him. The city was battered but not broken, a testament to human determination. The Empress looked down once more at the humans, her eyes thoughtful. She had underestimated them, but now she understood their potential. Humanity had revealed their true strength: courage, strategy, and the ability to adapt faster than dragons could imagine. The veteran stood tall, knowing that this victory was more than survival, it was a statement. Humans were not just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. As night fell, the city lay in silence, smoke rising from its ruins. A subtle movement in the shadows hinted that humans had more to show, a potential the dragons had not yet seen. The Empress took to the skies, leaving behind a battlefield that had witnessed the rise of humanity. The veteran looked at the stars, knowing that this war had changed everything. Humans had stood against the ancient and proud dragons, and in doing so had proven that they were capable of anything. The story was not over. This was only the beginning of humanity's epic journey.